Hello and welcome to another episode of Treatment Talk. In this episode, Robert and I sit down to talk about family support and what it means in terms of recovery from addiction, in coping with your mental health struggles, and going through the legal system. At the time of this episode's original upload, it's a few days after Christmas, and I can't think of a single time more emblematic of the importance of family support. Still, any time of year that you might be listening to this, I hope it helps you on your journey. Thanks for listening.
So, addiction and mental health struggles are often suffered in solitude. Other times, the situations we face in our home lives is a contributing factor to struggles, and it affects how we cope. Sometimes, still, it seems like there's nobody who can possibly understand what we're going through. So, who do you seek for your support? Why not family? A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. When things get rough and our lives spiral out of control, sometimes it's the people closest to us who help make the biggest difference. So, on today's episode of Treatment Talk, I'm here with Robert, and we're examining the roles that family support plays in our struggles, our addictions, and our recovery. So, hey, Robert, how is it having family support now in your recovery? How would you describe the role your family plays?
My family plays a huge role now and actually has always played a huge role in supporting um, my mental health and addiction struggle journey and recovery.
And
So without
what is it like knowing that you have that kind of unconditional love and support?
it's it's a huge comfort to know I have that backing and that understanding of my family. Like, I'm an only child, so I only have my parents, but I also am very close with three cousins on my dad's side of the family. Um, and the reason I'm so close with them is every holiday or summer break or time my parents get off work when I was growing up, we would go up north to visit my grandparents, and then my cousins were always around. Um, some of my family members have dealt with mental health and addiction issues, so some of them tried to intervene earlier in my using lifestyle or using career. Um, Mostly unsuccessfully just because I wasn't ready yet to give up that kind of lifestyle or self-destructive mindset yet. But now uh, very comforting to know other family has gone through it. They have my back, I have theirs, and it's just a huge like relief off my shoulders and
It's
off
an
my
extra
chest
part of
that
the safety net. Like it's an extra tool in that toolbox when you know what, I might not have it today, but at least I have them.
yes.
Oh yeah. Like when you were talking about your family there, and I got thinking, like, sure, it's great to have real, honest love and caring feedback, but it's not like any family out there is like the freaking Brady Bunch or like that idealized version. And so knowing that there it has been even generationally sometimes mental health is a generational problem, and some things are inherited. Addiction issues can be possibly genetic, possibly taught, most likely a mixture of both. Is it weird seeing some of that kind of modeled for you growing up, and how like family kind of help mold you into who you are for better and for worse?
I would say it was it was weird because like I knew my grandfather may have had a problem with alcohol, but I only saw like the happy drunk with him. I saw him laugh, I saw him, like giggle or no violence with him that that I ever saw behind closed doors, I don't know. The gambling aspect that he kept hidden from everyone until his unfortunate passing. And when then we found out there's a second mortgage on the house or almost a lien on the house, so we have to square up before um, my mom was the power of attorney for both the estate. So when she found that out, it was like, oh, and of course shared it with my father and myself because we were able to go and take care of everything and get ready to get the house ready to sell and everything like that. Um, I also have a gambling addiction, so I could understand, oh, okay, that's why he like going to the casino a little like, 2 or 3 times a week. So that made sense. It seeing my cousins, my aunt, even a little bit my dad with some substances problems. And then on the mental health side was more my mom's side of the family. So to have both kind of, okay, well, like it molded me in a way negatively, like how that try and hide those problems, or, oh, we don't really talk about it unless it's a real problem, like unless we're going to an institution or we're getting in trouble with the law. That's the only time we talk about it. Uh, but now knowing some of the struggles my cousins have gone through, my mom has gone through, my dad has gone through, both with a chemical imbalance for depression and situational depression, and then the addiction issues that do run in the family, and then of course my own. Um, Now, for example, having a daughter of my own, at least now, growing up, if there's any signs of mental health or signs of addiction issues, I can kind of go back on that wealth of experience or that wealth of knowledge from my family or my own past. Okay, and I'll be able to help co-parent with her mom and be like, maybe these kind of avenues of help or counseling or just being approachable or uh, remaining teachable, but also like telling her, like, if anything, you can talk to us about anything. Like that's a huge weight off my back as well. It's with the history of mental health and addiction issues on at least my side of the family with my daughter. Um, I also believe it's a combination of hereditary, but also your upbringing or your situation that you're brought up in for those kind of not prerequisites, but like um,
Like those are all the dots that are there, And when the circumstances happen, that's when those dots connect and
Yeah.
when things manifest themselves. But when you were talking about like how your experiences helped you now become a better father and all that, it helps me think that like or crystallize that that is what family is in that ideal form. It's as a support structure, it's trying to elevate everyone else around you to achieve more than what you were given, like to be better than the hand of cards that you were dealt, and to try to hope and aspire and do better for the next generation.
Yeah.
And just as your family, your parents, your grandparents are trying to do for you, it's the best kind of pay it forward when it's working well. I didn't personally have uh, the same luck, at least right now. My family's support is at the bare minimum. My father's passed. My mom, she struggles with her own mental health, her own addiction issues, and it's at the point right now, the best way for her to be in my life is to be quite distant from me. I still check in when I can, but now it would almost be like the roles are reversed. And even though like I've been at my worst and she was there for me, uh, I know that I can't help her right now. And so the best way I can show support is to take that step back. Is it hard having, or have you ever had that conversation where it's like we've got to take the step back and been on kind of the receiving end of that? Like, we'll be here when you're ready, but right now, just that like light bulb moment or smack in the face of, you know what, we love you, but we don't like what's going on right now, and so we're taking this step back. What is that like? Or if you've ever had anything.
So yeah, through the counseling I've done and work, there was definitely that healthy boundary that had to be set between my parents and I. Um, it wasn't an easy pill to swallow to be told, you're not welcome at our home. You have caused too much pain, too much suffering. You need to be on your own. You need to be financially independent. You need to be, and you need to earn our trust back. That was the biggest thing, was earning the biggest light bulb smack in the face. Oh, I've broken their trust. How do I repair that? So it was doing living amends, going to my 12-step meetings, getting time underneath my belt for my addictions, getting sobriety, uh, but also proving, not with my words, because I can talk a good talk, but would fail to walk the walk. So my actions wouldn't line up with my words, and my parents had had enough, and some other family members have had enough. Still some to this day. Others have come back. Um, but the relationship I have with my parents hasn't always been how it is now. Um, my father and my relationship has been strained and sometimes broken. Um, my mom, I've had to do loving detachment as well, where her mental health was getting to a place where some of the things she would say would really affect me. And I tried different avenues of trying to help. And then there was a point where I had to do that healthy boundary for myself, or that loving detachment of, Mom, I love you, but I can't hear the things you're saying. You either need to get help. And at at some point I was as blunt as, you either need to get help or end it. Pick a pick a choice, and because I can't do this anymore. Um, but my parents did the same thing to me when I was about 18. Actually, my dad and I hadn't talked probably for 2 years until up until that point. I was 16, and actually he and I got into a fight. And then by the time I was 18, I would still talk with my mom, but I wouldn't really associate with my dad. And then both of them, it was a intervention that they did. Um, you're hurting your mother, you're hurting me, you're hurting my grandparents, your cousins, you're hurting everyone, and we can't take it anymore. So either like get out of our house, you're not welcome here anymore, go get help, or continue down the lifestyle of destruction that you're going, but we don't want any more contact.
Yeah, when you're saying that, it reminds me like parents can have like the most amazing intentions of trying to do right, but they don't always have the ways or the means. Like there's a billion and one parenting books out there, but there's no actual way of like one set way on how to, raise a good kid, and so mistakes happen along the way. And it's like a cycle of behavior. One person's behavior feeds into another person's behavior, and we trigger each other. We push each other's buttons, quite literally. We uh, Everything that you were saying reminded me of shit that I went through with my own dad. Like he and I got into a couple of fist fights, and like it, that's not what you think a family relationship should be. But at the same time, knowing at least with towards the end with my dad, he got to see me start going into some kind of recovery. So it's weird to go from such horrible antagonistic pushing each other's buttons and at the very least to a true deep loving respect and pride for each other.
Yeah,
It's weird, right?
it is weird to go from complete polar opposites. Yeah, fist fight to not talking to now. Even when I was living in Brampton before I moved back to London, like calling probably at least like 3 or 4 times a day to talk to both my mom and my dad separately or together, just to check in and like, hey, what's going on? No, this is what I kind of did today. My meetings went well. Um, or like when my living situation in Brampton wasn't going to work out. Um, Dad was, and usually dad doesn't make a decision fast. He'll think about it and be methodic and tactical. But for him to be like, why don't you move here? Like move in. Um, and I was going to, just at the same time, I didn't want to, well, I wasn't quite 35 yet, and I didn't want to be 35 and living with mom and dad. But circumstances are what they are. Like I did find my own place in London, but now with my dad's health uh, deteriorating a little bit, it's so I'm more happy that they're still willing for me to move back in January and help them out around the house, and you know, continue to rebuild and repair the relationship that I have with both together, my parents, and also separately with my mom and dad.
Yeah, I think about those hard talks that we have with our families sometimes, uh, on having to kind of admit defeat or take that step back, or I need to come home, like you're saying. And it's really weird how quickly some of those bad situations can be forgotten, and sometimes like all is forgiven. And when family gives that first bit of forgiveness, it can be a bigger breakthrough. And, and sometimes we even deserve at the moment, but at least we get it, and it starts, yeah, like priming that engine and keeping it going. I think of how when I was at my lowest, and you know, sitting there in that orange jumpsuit, and oh, you got a visitor come down, and you're talking through the phone, and on the other side of the window, there, there's my dad, and having to have that first conversation because he, in my case anyway, he had no idea how bad things were with me, and having that first conversation with family, and having to admit your problems. What is that like? Because for me, it was hell. I couldn't even lift my head up. Like, I could not look them in the eye.
Yeah, the hell, extremely difficult. Yeah, the same thing. Like, I couldn't look either parent in the eye because both of them came. Even the last visit, um, at Maplehurst when I was at OCI, when I was at Maplehurst this time around, it was tough. It was like, okay, I'm getting out, and, the next morning. Uh, but still, I couldn't really look either my mom or dad in the eye. Uh, and if I did, then all three of us are breaking down and crying, kind of thing. And it's like just putting a hand on the glass and having them put their hand on the other side. Kind of cliche uh, moment, but at the same time, having the visits, both when I was at the Brampton facility of OCI and the Maplehurst one, it's like, okay, they still care enough. They care enough to want to know what the hell is going on with their son or with my life that I've ended up back in this place, back in Orange. Uh, the one thing I never thought about until I knew about my shame and guilt of how I felt of being uh, again incarcerated or again in jail. But it wasn't until I would say this time around of like, I wonder how my parents feel about this. How do they feel about their son being in jail again? How much guilt and shame do they feel with either not telling family or telling family? It was one thing I had never really considered until my most recent time incarcerated and being at OCI. That, oh, right, my parents. because of the actions I chose to do and get arrested again. Uh, I guess intellectually, I kind of got it that my parents were victims of my offending behavior and cycle, but it
But you
never
felt it.
sank in. It never sank into the heart, and it would took till this time. It was like, oh, okay. I now get the your parents are a victim. Uh, the how the community becomes a victim, how society becomes a victim to your acting out.
Yeah, it's like a circle of empathy. Like the easiest circle to get into beyond just yourself on how things are affecting others is the people that you are closest to, that you've spent the most time around. And I mean, as a kid, ideally, those are your parents, your siblings, if you have them, are going to be the first people you have empathy for and understand. Oh, they have thoughts and feelings too. And when you're dealing with relapses, when you're in your addictions, when you're in your offending behavior, when you're at your worst, your lowest, whatever euphemisms you want to call it, so much of that empathy goes right out the window. And it's almost like having to rediscover it again. And it's like, oh, how did this affect them? And then it's, like you said, it's easier to take that leap. And so that's another way that family, you know, is a part of your recovery, is just they're that first step towards seeing the world around you on more like life's terms and the consequences. And yet it comes with it because they're the first people that we feel that for. It's the first ones to often offer understanding or compassion and forgiveness too at the same time. It's oddly cyclical.
It is. I also found though that if it weren't for seeking out like counseling or professional guidance or help, um, both individually with both of my parents or the three of us together, I don't think the the slow process would have been jump started of gaining trust back again and the repairing or the healing process would have really started. We had laid some like that kind of groundwork in between my second and third arrests, but it definitely sped up the process getting out after the third time. And luckily, not moving right back to London really helped too. Being in a different city and my parents kind of knowing, okay, you have your groups, you have your meetings to go to, you have another safety or support network or support system around you besides just us. And they could kind of take that loving detachment or that healthy boundary of taking a step back and okay, let's see how he does. That the I use it all the time when I meet new people, but the rope analogy. We'll give him enough rope to hang himself and let's see what he does with it. And I think it came to a point of probably 6 months, yeah, 6 months to a year of being um, out. And then it was, okay, you can do like a day visit. And then another, 3 months. Okay, you can do a night over. Um, like it was building the equity of trust and the equity of doing the right things that I needed to do to stay out of trouble, to better myself, to continue my journey of recovery for them to okay to not let down their guard, but maybe take down some of the walls.
Yeah, what's it like when you're kind of given those hoops to jump through in order to earn that trust back? Because I know for me, I'm stubborn enough, and when I'm thinking certain ways, it's like I just get caught up in myself on like, well, but I'm doing the right things, and I'm fine or I'm clean or I'm living right, and you should just know that, and you should just trust that. But then there's more hurdles to jump through. So what's that like?
I find it as I don't find it as like, how dare you have these hurdles for me to jump or these hoops to jump through. I find it more like a challenge. Oh, I have a hoop to jump through. Oh, okay. Well, make the hoop smaller, light it on fire, watch me jump through and not get burned. It's more motivation for me to go through those hoops or hurdles or challenges or I don't know, maybe I am wired differently, but
But it's
uh
like a pride when you met that milestone and earned that trust.
I'd say it was like a healthy amount of pride or ego, but also, oh, not letting that overrun everything. So it's like finding that healthy balance of, okay, I got through this one. What's the next one? I think when I have a lot of structure, I thrive. When I don't have structure, I plummet into chaos and it's never good. And I think my parents understand that. I think my dad understands it finally. My mom kind of always knew we need to challenge him. And the rest of my family the friends I have now, not so much growing up, but the friends I have now in recovery and ones that I will turn to when I need help are also there to keep me accountable, keep me teachable, but also call me on my bullshit.
And the better they know you, like your dad, like your mom, they know you because I mean they changed your diapers, right? So they know you
Exactly.
pretty darn well. And it, when they know you, they can challenge you that much better. They know your limits, but they also know your potential.
Yeah. And that's why with Brampton Prison Ministries or BPM, that I know with Mark especially, I see him more as a sponsor for me because when I was in Brampton and then started using cannabis again. And I had asked Mark, I'm like, I'm using it for pain. I'm not sleeping. I have insomnia. I don't want to take a pill. So like I'm vaping a little bit of marijuana here or there, or I'm using an edible to just help sleep or get through this pain, that pain. So as long as it doesn't make you want to use anything else and you don't go overboard. And I'd also talked about it in my 12-step meetings with my AA sponsor and my NA sponsor. And they wasn't really happy about it. AA was like, as long as it doesn't want to make you want to drink or use anything else. Until the point that it made me want to do something else. It got to the point where my living situation in Brampton was so bad. I was so overwhelmed and stressed. I actually went to the bar, ordered a drink, had it in my hand, and then the moment the clarity happened, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Okay, put the drink down, tell the bartender, that's your tip for when your shift's done. Here's for the drink. See ya. Called Mark. And it's like, okay. And like I hadn't heard Mark swear a whole lot up until that point, except for like
The
occasionally,
occasional.
right? Like he stubbed his toe or something like that. And when I told him, yeah, I was at the bar, I had a drink, and I think I need to give up cannabis, he said, yeah, you should probably put that shit down. So I'm like, okay, I'll listen. And yep. So now it's been about 20 months of no cannabis, no CBD. Um, Harder drugs has been November 11th will be 10 years, and alcohol 12 years also on the 11th.
And considering at time of recording, that's coming up fairly closely. So that's a
Yep,
huge congratulations for you. And
thank you.
when you can communicate to family, and in a way, sponsors are like family in they're the family we choose when the family we have isn't quite enough. But
Yeah.
with having a brother, having a mother, having a father, having a cousin, someone who knows what you're struggling with and knows, you know what, I'm gonna make sure I got to keep an eye on him to make sure he's, you know, hey, what's in your vape, or what's in that glass, what's where are you going? They know they know what your triggers are, they know what your weaknesses are, and because they know what boundaries you've set for yourself, if they're helping you keep it, it can be sometimes that last ditch difference between success and failure. Like when you mentioned that day when you went to the bar, uh, what would it have been like had you been like physically closer or living with your parents at that point?
Um, I know the stress level wouldn't have been the same. It would have been, 100, times less. Um, I don't, I don't think I would have put myself in that risky situation, to be honest. Um, Knowing how bad the living situation was now, like the hindsight, of course, is 2020, but yeah, I wouldn't have been at a bar. I wouldn't have ordered. I wouldn't have sat down on the the bar stool, ordered that double shot, no ice kind of thing. Like, um,
And it's sad
and
because for some people, like a drink is just a drink. And I mean, I know for me, I was told my first steps were between different cases of beer. And uh, I remember sharing a drink with my dad. It wasn't necessarily tasting good at the time, but it was something that meant a lot to him. But though those what might be socially acceptable or welcomed or encouraged in some families, other families are going to take a look at that and be like, oh, yeah, we can't drink around him. Or, oh, that's a sign of something bigger. And they're watching out for you and they have those moments of clarity, even when we don't. And
Yeah.
it's almost scary, right? When have you ever had an experience where your family is cautioning you in a way that you might not have thought of in the moment, but made sense after the fact?
Uh, yes and yes. Um, when I was first going through the recovery journey and getting sober, my baba, which is Ukrainian for grandmother, had passed away. So that was extremely tough on everyone, especially my dad was her youngest child, a youngest son. I was the youngest grandson and grandchild. So my dad and I we're very close to my grandmother. Well, after the funeral, we had a celebration of life. And my cousin, Krista, I remember this vividly because she's like, "Are you going to be okay? Because we kind of made it BYOB. We know you're not drinking. Are you going to be comfortable with people drinking around you?" And I think at the time I had something like 90 days clean and sober. But the fact that my cousin came to me and I'm closest with her, and she's like my older sister because I don't have a sibling, but that's how close we are. Um, I remember kind of just like, yeah, like I can hang around with my mom, because my mom doesn't drink. And I'm like, well, I can kind of, the if I get overwhelmed, I was still smoking cigarettes at the time, so I'm like, I can just go out for a smoke, come back, hang out with mom after I, spray or body spray or cologne. So mom doesn't smell cigarette smoke because she's allergic to that. Um, that was one instance. The other one was kind of me quitting drinking had the positive effect on someone else, and that was my dad. So, like you said, November 11th is coming up quick. Well, I'll have 12 years if I make it, which I should. Knock on some kind of wood for me. Oh wait, there's a dresser.
Got it.
Well,
Press board, but
yeah, my dad has 9 years of sobriety upcoming on January 1st from alcohol as well.
awesome.
So him seeing the positive changes of not drinking, and I don't think my dad was ever an alcoholic. I never saw him fall down drunk. I never saw him the angry drunk. I never even saw him the happy drunk. I would see him maybe have 2 beers with my grandfather, and he would say, "Okay, I've had enough." But I think him seeing the positive changes that I had made when I had stopped drinking and also drugging a couple of years later, um, made him think, why do I need this? In a way. And we have talked about this, and he's like, yeah, well, like I saw the positive changes you made in your life, but then I would still have like a non-alcoholic beer every anniversary or something like that. Like a special occasion, you would have a non-alcoholic beer. But in on January 1st, it'll be 9 years of not even having a non-beer for him. So it's it's kind of funny because I'll joke around with him. Like, I got 3 more years in you, and he's like, oh, shut up. He's like, you also quit a lot younger than I did. So it's a fun little banter we can have, but at the same time, he did it more cold turkey and without meetings. He would ask if I had extra literature around for AA, and I would say yeah, or I would get him Al-Anon stuff um, for having to deal with a son that was an alcoholic, and um, so he found like the audio discs that they would give out at um, the conference both in Kingston and in Toronto every year. And especially when I used to live in Toronto, I would go to those conferences all the time. And so there's a lot of literature around here that is 12-step based. So I think that helped him a little
Well,
bit,
when the
even though
12 step program, it's about passing it on. And
yeah,
why not pass it on to the people that you love the most?
yeah. I never thought about it until he said, "Oh, I have 5 years of not drinking even a non-beer." I said, "Oh, when did you?" I mean, why did you stop? And he was like, "Oh, I saw all the changes you made, and I think maybe after his mom died, maybe his drinking got a little bit heavier. It would make sense, but that's also about the same time he opened up about his mental health issues. So kind of worked out.
Well, before we kind of close off this conversation for the evening, I just wanted to see if I can pick your brain on one thing because this is all about sharing our experiences and our strength and our hope for others. Uh, what is your favorite memory that you can now say that you have with your family that is only possible because of your recovery and their support of you in it?
That's a good question. So kind of a little bit of a backstory, and then I'll get to the point. The biggest thing for me for having my family support because of the journey of recovery that I'm in was because of me being sober, doing the work I've done for not just my addictions, but my mental health. Um, Friday that just passed, my dad had to get surgery because of the work that I've done, repairing relationships, rebuilding trust, building enough equity in recovery. I was able to be there for my dad for his surgery that just happened. Unlike in 2021, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. They never told me. I was incarcerated. They never told me. He went through chemo and radiation and surgery. Luckily, it was in stage one, so early. But when I found that out when I was released, it tore me up inside. I wasn't there, and they thought I wasn't either strong enough in recovery or strong enough mentally to handle that, not burden, but that information, that knowledge. This time around, dad told me, yes, I have a hernia. I probably have a couple more because I've been going through this pain for so long. So the trust aspect that both my mom and dad had to A, tell me he needs surgery, B, okay, we need help with some of his appointments. We need you to move in again to help around the house, not only after the surgery or before the surgery, but after the surgery. And my dad said, I want you there. In my re- in my past with dealing with my mental health in negative ways and dealing with my addictions in negative ways, there's no way that he would have asked me to be there. No way he would have asked me to help in whatever way I can. So that's the biggest thing for me. I've earned that trust back. I've earned the acceptance of my parents to tell me that he needs surgery, and the fact that my dad and my relationship hasn't been the greatest throughout, my life,
But
but
it's what it needs to be.
at least, yeah, and it's what it needs to be now, and also he wants me in his life. Where there were times that I'm pretty sure he didn't. He never said it out loud, but it was what it was, and now the relationship is what it is, and I'm grateful that I found the journey of recovery for both my mental health and my addictions, where I'm able to be there for my loved ones, my family, my friends, in whatever situation that won't put me in harm's way or risk.
And one last thing, just one last pick your brain. What would you say to someone who is in those really early stages of recovery and feels like maybe they've pushed their family too far away or that they don't have that support? What would you say to them?
It's a long journey. Don't give up hope. Don't quit. Um, Continue to work on yourself, and through time, patience, understanding, acceptance of yourself and then others. Hopefully, eventually, everything will come back. Even if it's not like how you remember it, sometimes it's better.
Amen to that. I honestly couldn't have put that any better myself. And hey, reach out to your family. It's amazing what they are willing to understand and listen to and even accept when you think they might not be able to. Because in the end, family is family. And I've been Dennis. I've been here with Robert. This has been Treatment Talk.